Going all the way back into July, we witnessed one of the biggest updates from Ripple. It was the fact that Ripple was applying for a national bank charter from the OCC, but also on top of that, they were also applying for a Fed master account. This is very important, especially at a time where we are watching as almost every single major agency is flipping on crypto. What do I mean by that? Well, every single major agency and organization is starting to jump in on crypto and say, hey, this is the future. We want to adopt this. We want to utilize this. We want to clear all the obstacles in the way of this industry and ensure that it is going to be integrated and utilized at scale around our financial system. And one of those organizations or agencies is the Federal Reserve. Now, for the longest time, the XRP community has speculated that the Fed will utilize Ripple and XRP. I feel as if with the announcement of RLUSD and all of the announcements of crypto essentially becoming integrated into the system through stablecoins, I feel as if we are one step closer to that idea no longer being speculation and more so becoming a fact. Let's go over a few things. Let's start off with the big announcement, which we got earlier yesterday, which was Justin, Federal Reserve looks into payment accounts that would grant crypto and fintech companies access to Fed payment rails. Again, this is basically Ripple because back in July, with them applying for a Fed master account, this provides them with access to hold RLUSD reserves directly with the Fed and provide an additional layer of security to future-proof trust in RLUSD. Because again, this allows for another payment rail. Now let's build on top of this because we also got a big update regarding a Fed conference, which was the Fed's Payments Innovation Conference, which was held the same day that we got the announcement from the Fed saying that they were looking into payment accounts that would grant crypto and fintech companies access to Fed payment rails. The executives included Chainlink, BlackRock, Paxos, Circle, Coinbase, Fireblocks, Arc, and more. They were speaking on bridging TradFi with DeFi, stablecoins, and tokenization. Now, we got a big update from Eleanor Tourette, which also outlines this. Big news out of the Federal Reserve Payments Innovation Conference this morning. Governor Chris Waller announced that the central bank is proposing a new type of limited access master account, or what he calls a skinny master account, for all legally eligible institutions to receive direct access to the Fed's payments rails so they don't have to rely on partner banks. With this setup, they wouldn't access all the services of a full master account, like the ability to borrow from the Fed. Importantly, every legally eligible entity could get one, and the legal rules for eligibility wouldn't change. Essentially, this new master account light would allow the Fed to greenlight innovative banks, including fintech, stablecoin issuers, and other payment companies. This is a big deal for companies like Custodia Bank and Kraken FX, which have spent years trying to get a Fed master account. With Custodia even taking the Fed to court, it could also speed access for companies like Ripple and Anchorage, which applied this year as well. And yeah, this could be a huge game changer for the entire industry. Now, also what's interesting about this is Anthony Welfare, if you guys do know, this is an ex-Ripple employee. He also said, and crypto Twitter is bearish. We have not even started the real adoption phase. Blockchain-based payments will be the standard before you know it. I wonder what happens to old school banks, existing payment rails, and card payment processors then. A clue? They are redundant. Because again, when we think about what's really happening right now around finance, everything is changing. We witnessed some of the biggest updates this year. I've been stressing this because I've been talking about it for quite some time about what's going to happen going into the future. And, we really started to highlight a lot of things happening already in 2022, 2023, 2024. And then 2025 came and, almost everything that we were talking about or speculating on when it comes to Ripple and XRP, we started to see it become a reality. Stablecoins are taking over. The FX market is moving on chain. Cross-border payments are more accessible now to crypto than ever before. And also on top of that, the US government has highlighted that crypto is the future. Stablecoins are going to become more adopted and integrated into the system. And, stablecoins can become that huge piece of the US dollar that essentially, the backbone of it, if you will, in the digital age of finance, which is just crazy to think about and hear from the US government. Now, on top of that, we did get a video clip from this conference, which was very bullish. And I'm going to play it right now. This is from Subjective Views. We have breaking. Governor Waller's opening remarks at the Fed's Payments Innovation Conference happening now. This is an acknowledgement that DLT and crypto assets are no longer on the fringes, but are increasingly woven into the fabric of the payment and financial system. Guys, this is one of the biggest statements that we have heard around crypto ever, because this is coming from a Fed governor. Listen closely to this video clip.
Good morning. All right. Well, thank you, Susan, and good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Federal Reserve Board for our first Payments Innovation Conference. My objective in creating this conference is twofold. First, I wanted to have a conference that focused on the new technologies that have come from the DeFi and crypto worlds and how they are entering into the mainstream payments ecosystem. My goal is to have a vibrant discussion about payments between traditional payment incumbents and the new entrants from the DeFi world. Second, I wanted to send a message that this is a new era for the Federal Reserve in payments. The DeFi industry is not viewed with suspicion or scorn. Rather, today, you are welcome to the conversation on the future of payments in the United States and on our home field, something that would have been unimaginable a few years ago. My view for the Fed from now on is embrace the disruption. Don't avoid it. As you know, we are well into a technology-driven revolution in payments, and I'm here to say that the Federal Reserve intends to be an active part of that revolution. A number of technological advances are transforming the payment system. Stablecoins and tokenized assets, making use of distributed ledger technology, the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence AI, and increasingly the convergence between these innovations and the traditional financial ecosystem. This includes the institutions and infrastructure that our economy has long depended on to operate a safe and efficient payment system. And yes, this also includes the Federal Reserve. The revolution in transforming payments is demanding change everywhere. And I will say more in a moment about some new ideas that the Federal Reserve is studying to support those innovations. I have spoken before of what I see as the two broad models of payments innovation in our market economy. The first is private sector-driven innovation. Most innovation comes from the private sector, which is motivated and best positioned to allocate resources and take risk with new technologies. The second model is when public sector entities, such as the Fed, build platforms and provide services that enable the private sector to more readily and rapidly expand new services to its customers. This should be done rarely and in limited circumstances where it addresses a specific market need. The posture of public institutions, including the Federal Reserve, should be to acknowledge and embrace private sector innovation that can improve the payment system while preserving its safety and stability, which are as essential to the new generation of innovators as they are to legacy institutions. Now let me pull back a moment and remind everyone how we got here. Since nearly its founding, the Federal Reserve System has worked to facilitate payment and settlement system efficiency alongside the private sector. From the beginning, the clearing services provided by the reserve banks obviated the need for daily movements of cash in armored cars with heavily armed guards. Long before we started speaking of the payment rails that are facilitating the kind of innovation we're discussing today, the Fed was running trains on steel rails to deliver and clear paper checks traveling across the country. FedWire began conducting interbank transfers through telegraph wires in the early 20th century. Fast forward today, where we have multiple infrastructures that settle interbank transfers in real time. Today's conference will focus on private sector-driven innovation. We have assembled 100 private sector innovators who are leveraging cutting-edge technology to create new possibilities in the payments landscape. Our panelists are engaging in integrating traditional financial payment rails with distributed ledgers, developing new products and services in the digital asset ecosystem, and leveraging AI in the payment system. It's worth noting that the firms engaged in these activities include banks, asset managers, retail payment firms, technology companies, as well as crypto-native fintechs. This is an acknowledgement that distributed ledgers and crypto assets are no longer on the fringes, but are increasingly woven into the fabric of the payment and financial system. Now,
and there you have the last statement. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible to hear coming from the Fed's mouth. So when we think about what's really going on here, yeah, crypto has now become a crucial piece in the financial system. Ripple and XRP have been waiting for this moment. We have been waiting for this moment. When it comes back to the US Faster Payments Council, this is one of those organizations that we have been following closely since going, far back in time. Back in 2019, the Federal Reserve became a founding sponsor of the FPC. Now, the FPC itself has always been a key player in the financial system, specifically advancing innovation around the payment system to ensure that the vision here is really kind of retained around these new technologies, making sure that we have, payments that can safely and securely happen anywhere to anyone at any time with near immediate funds availability. All of that is guided by these new technologies. And again, what's crazy about this is we know that Ripple has been working closely with the US Faster Payments Council. They've been working closely together for a while. I know that this says that they teamed up back in 2023. However, they have been closely working on things for a very, very long time. And what's even crazier about this is we know recently there was a release on August 28th of the new board advisory group, which, yes, Ripple is on this group with James Selleck. I believe that there's one other Ripple employee here as well. I know that there was two. I think it was Pat Thelen that was also on here, but I might be wrong. But we did follow. We followed this organization for so long, but what's crazy about this is we know that Ripple is still a part of this. We know that this is backed by the Fed in a big way. And this is also at a time where the Fed is starting to move in on crypto in a huge way. And I do believe that Ripple and XRP are going to be 100% a big piece of this major initiative to tap into these new technologies and integrate them into the system. And then also, last but not least, I do want to bring up this post from Smoke Dog because, yes, the Federal Reserve can integrate with Ripple in a big way. We talked about it before as well. These two systems can coexist. We have here, remember, the Federal Reserve's David Andofato confirmed that Ripple's protocol can coexist with the U.S. payment system. Listen closely. Check it out.
David, fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I'm one of the fellows who raised his hand when you asked who uses Ripple, Joe and myself. And I just want to say, it's I'm very happy to see that someone at the St. Louis Fed respects it at the very least. And I'm sure that from all the good things you said about it, many people in this room would like to hear more. But you mentioned that you foresee peer-to-peer currency-agnostic payment clearance systems such as Ripple coexisting with institutions such as central banks in the United States. And my question is, how are we going to see that happen? What is it going to take?
So thank you very much. And, all the nice things I said about Ripple, everybody knows to short it. Well, how do I see it? Like you said, Ripple is a currency agnostic platform. It really doesn't care too much about creating and managing its money supply, although it does have its native money supply. So, it's doing, the way I exposited the idea, Ripple is handling the processing of payments for many of the world's unbanked people. Okay, and that the Fed is one institution that's providing a type of currency that people could use as payment using the Ripple protocol. But there may be other currencies. There could be Bitcoin. There could be the yen. So I see room for coexistence. I see it today. I don't see any reason to doubt why it might not continue in the future.
And again, the reason why these technologies can coexist, which, by the way, yes, he does make a statement about shorting it. Obviously, joke or not, it doesn't really matter. Over time, we know that statement has aged like, milk out in the sun. But the main thing that we're looking at here is just the connections back to the Fed with Ripple. We know that these two have always been commingling, if you will, for quite some time around the same topic here, which is making sure that the U.S. Financial system is moving much more efficient, and also, all of the inefficiencies that plague our financial system are essentially gone. And regardless of if the Fed sticks around or not, we've talked about how the Fed could take, more of a backseat position here and no longer have a hands-on approach to the system. That could definitely happen with crypto, because just like Anthony Welfare is saying here, a lot of these players are redundant. Even the Fed is technically a redundant player that is sort of a middleman, if you will. Crypto kind of replaces that, but regardless of that, I still think that the Fed will have a position here to, play. And I think that, in the future, yeah, blockchain is going to be the standard. I feel like, Ripple, XRP, it will be the standard of how money moves. It will be at least one of the key players in that system. And, you could argue that Ripple has the upper hand here, and I would say 100% it's true. So, is Ripple and XRP going to be integrated into the US system through, the Fed? I think that there's a really high probability that this recent announcement could pertain back to what Ripple has been doing, and even the application to have a Fed master account. This is how we have, Ripple and XRP integrated into the system in a big way. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on, because I'm free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.